December 21st, 2012. Welcome to the last day on Earth. Disaster has descended from the sky, and the Earth is shaken to its core. The oceans consume our shores and beyond. All modern technology fails. The world has shut down. For thousands of years, prophets around the world have predicted the end of days. More than one suggests the apocalypse is fast approaching. We call this theoretical convergence between doomsday prophecies and today's events the Nostradamus effect.
How will the end begin?
It is a date that has become synonymous with the end. December 21st, 2012. Why do so many people believe that on that day, the world will experience an unprecedented cataclysm? Modern researchers point to unusual correlations across diverse cultures, all of which seem to predict that 2012 may be the year when we meet our demise.
We're heading towards the seminal event. The greatest crisis in human history is upon us. The Earth is going to be tried by fire.
We are getting closer and closer with the escalation in the numbers of tornadoes, the numbers of hurricanes, the numbers of just floods, pestilence, the fact that we have our oceans dying out.
We will examine the prophecies that point to 2012 as the year the world will be annihilated. These prophecies seem to connect ancient cultures, such as the Maya and the Hopi, the Hindu and ancient China. Even modern science and the insights of computer experts link to Nostradamus himself to suggest a doomsday convergence in 2012. We will neither refute nor endorse these theories, merely present the evidence. To some, a comparison of apocalyptic prophecies for 2012 yields unusual correlations.
Researchers began comparing notes for the first time in history. We were able to do it instantaneously via the web. And we reached, this stunning conclusion that we had 8 or 9 different cultures all predicting some kind of event that was coming, and startlingly close, not only in date, but in the nature of the predictions.
How is it possible so many diverse cultures throughout the ages appear to have predicted the same year as the end of everything? Perhaps believers of the prophecies are misinterpreting the evidence. Is man able to predict future events at all?
We can't predict even a month in advance what's going to happen, or even a week. So it's impossible to say what will happen on a specific date in the future.
Others disagree.
We have something that the ancients considered to be so important that they put it down in prophecies, they put it down in calendars. Every single disparate culture was trying in every way possible to send a message downstream that something incredible was going to happen.
We will examine each prophecy to confirm whether 2012 is perhaps the pivotal year when everything will change forever. Or we may discover that 2012 is no different than any other year. But no examination of the 2012 theory can begin without exploring history's most famous calendar, one that has confounded and fascinated millions since its creation 2,000 years ago, the Mayan calendar. The Maya were a Mesoamerican culture that peaked between the years 250 and 900 AD.
They had an amazing knowledge of science, art, architecture, astronomy, cosmology. And some people will say it's because they live so close to the land. They observe nature in a way that we no longer need to. We have computers and TV. Why do we need to go out and look at the stars? We don't do that anymore. We are so out of touch with the natural cycles.
How did such an ancient culture identify astronomical events so far into the future?
The Mayans were very fascinated with astronomical cycles and with time, and had constructed many different ways of sort of being related to time.
Awed by the night sky and its constellations, the Mayans searched the stars for omens. Meticulously tracking celestial patterns, they developed an ingenious system of calendars. The calendars were circles of stone, some of which could interlock like the gears of a clock.
More than 1,000 years ago, in the classical Mayan period, they determined the length of the year, the solar year, to within 0.8 of a second of what we now know it or consider it to be with our computerized technology today. Their calendar, there's actually more than 20 calendars that charted the movements of the sun, the moon, Venus, the cycles of nature and harvest, all sorts of things. They saw clocks within clocks, cycles within cycles. They're the timekeepers of everything.
The most significant of the Mayan calendars was the long count. It tracks a 5,125-year era, beginning on August 11th, 3114 BC, and abruptly ending on December 21st, 2012. Did the Mayans actually intend this date to represent the end of time? Some believe the final date of their calendar simply indicates a reset to a new cycle, a new long count. But others see an alarming trend. An investigation into other cultures across the ages and the continents has also identified December 21st as an especially significant day. It marks the winter solstice in the northern hemisphere, the day of the year when the sun appears farthest from the earth.
It happens every year. It's actually the pagan origin of what we now call Christmas.
Science has confirmed that the winter solstice in 2012 will coincide with an extraordinarily rare event called a galactic alignment. It will seem to place our sun in the very center of our home galaxy, the Milky Way.
The galactic alignment is caused by the alignment of the winter solstice sun with the equatorial plane of the Milky Way.
The Milky Way is a massive pinwheel-shaped disk of stars that includes our sun. From our vantage point within it, the Milky Way looks like a band with a dark rift in the center, a place where there are no visible stars. Mayan astronomers calculated that the winter solstice sun appears to line up within this dark rift center of the galaxy once every 26,000 years. How they arrived at this conclusion is a mystery. But they accurately predicted the next galactic alignment thousands of years beyond their own time.
The Maya had been for quite a while trying to figure out when this kind of epochal shift event would happen, and even which kind of astronomical cycle it was connected with.
Astronomers today have concluded that the coming galactic alignment will be the first such occurrence since the beginning of human civilization. But there is no scientific evidence to support that it will result in any celestial catastrophe. Still, some observers speculate that the rare event will coincide with cosmic chaos. They suggest violent solar storms hurling deadly radiation toward Earth, a magnetic polar shift, even a complete pole reversal. Scenarios that could leave our planet devastated and billions dead. According to some interpreters, the Mayan calendar is clear. 2012 marks the end of time. But as to the specific horrors mankind could face on that fateful day, the Mayans are ominously silent. If we accept that the ancient Mayans were warning future generations of an apocalypse in the year 2012, they may not have been alone. A trail of evidence suggests that other ancient cultures may have arrived at the very same conclusion about a possible end date for the world. Could the same be said of history's most notorious prophet, Nostradamus? Will all of these lines of evidence converge to signal our destruction in 2012? 2012. Many believe that this is the date when the world will end. Some say it is predicted in a 2,000-year-old Mayan calendar. Similar timelines from other cultures seem to point to the exact same date. Is this really a sign that humanity is on the brink of apocalypse? As 2012 approaches, those open to the possibility are examining the different strands of evidence with increased urgency. Their goal is to determine whether these strands are linked with a seemingly escalating number of recent natural disasters.
I think the cataclysm is coming straight at us. I think there's nothing we can do about it. It is both an external cataclysm, i.e. outside our planet, and it is an internal cataclysm. We are in very serious trouble, very serious trouble.
Others say not so.
I think what's happening from a 21st century perspective, we're looking at these prophetic clocks and kind of reading into it what we want to read into it. They're quite vague, and it kind of reminds me of these people that knock on my door and tell me Armageddon's just around the corner.
December 26th, 2004. 8 years before 2012. An earthquake beneath the Indian Ocean registers 9.3 on the Richter scale, the second largest ever recorded. It propels walls of water as high as 50 feet toward unsuspecting victims in 11 different countries. When the water recedes, entire communities are gone. The death toll is staggering. 250,000 people have perished. Some suggest this tragedy has brought us one step closer to the end of days as we march toward the finality of the Mayan timeline. The Mayans chose December 21st, 2012, the date of the galactic alignment, as the end of their calendar, and perhaps the end of the world. But they may not have been alone in doing so.
You have a lot of indigenous cultures and myth-based cultures which seem to be very aware of this as a time of transformation. And other cultures are now stepping forth saying that they have prophecies around this time.
One such culture, the Hopi Indians of the American Southwest, have lived on the land that is now present-day Arizona for nearly 1,000 years. Like their Mayan predecessors, they find a union with the earth and the sky, and in them seek to answer the mysteries of the universe. Centuries ago, they carved their prediction of man's future destruction in stone on what is now known as the Hopi Prophecy Rock. Like the Mayan calendar, the Hopi prophecy breaks down humankind's timeline into phases or worlds. According to interpreters, the Hopi believed that the world has been created and destroyed 3 times. The first 3 worlds were wiped out by violent natural forces, volcanoes, a great ice age, and flood. They believe we now inhabit the 4th world.
They see this as the cusp between the 4th world and the 5th world. And they have a whole series of oral prophecies that they feel have been fulfilled, with only a few left to take place before we enter into this next world.
Hopi traditions predict that near the day of the Great Purification, man will bring home pieces of the moon, and there will be cobwebs in the sky through which we travel and communicate, all disrupting a delicate cosmic balance. Are the Hopi predictions of the moon landing, airplane travel, and telecommunications accurate? To those seeking confirmation of the Mayan prophecy of 2012, they are indicators that the time remaining for the Hopi's 4th world, our world, is alarmingly short. To some, the imagery of the Hopi prophecy rock suggests we are soon destined to experience a great catastrophe, purged by fire from the sky, possibly solar storms, an asteroid, or nuclear weapons. Thousands of miles away from the Maya and the Hopi, and centuries apart, another culture has its own prophecy of our end. The ancient Hindus created a calendar that some interpreters believe also points at 2012. The mythology of the Hindus, like that of the Maya and Hopi, holds that life in the universe occurs in cycles. According to Hindu myth, each cycle of life is divided into 4 ages called yugas: the Dwapara, Treta, Satya, and the Kali. Humankind begins each cycle enlightened by virtue and high ideals. Then, over time, humans degenerate into a state of evil and corruption. The philosophy of life cycles is mirrored in our modern world in the way we keep time.
The modern system of time we use on our watches, it's 12 hours of AM, 12 hours of PM for a total of 24 hours. AM is an increasing light, PM is decreasing light. Our present system of time is a microcosm of the Yuga system.
According to ancient Hindu texts, we now live in the final age of the Kali Yuga. The texts indicate that this age began in 3102 BC. Intriguingly, this date is separated from the start of the Mayan long count calendar by only 12 years. Could this final age end in 2012 and usher in the end of days, just as the Mayans prophesied with their calendar? The final age of the Kali Yuga, described in the ancient Hindu texts, has been seen by some to bear a striking resemblance to our own time, with its escalating unrest, pestilence, and destruction. They believe humankind is consuming itself until a final cataclysm annihilates everything.
Hell before heaven, or the darkness before the dawn. And this is something that's repeated in a lot of mythologies, a lot of creation stories, a lot of cultures.
Many interpreters say it's a reach to target 2012 as the point of intersection for the prophecies of the Maya, Hopi, and Hindus. But some believe the correlations shared by these diverse cultures are too striking to be a coincidence. Others suggest yet another prophetic voice has joined the chorus. History's most renowned seer, Nostradamus. The French Renaissance prophet may have also foreseen calamity in 2012, as he may have for other world events.
Nostradamus predicted a lot of very notable events from 1555 to the present day. The rise and fall of Napoleon. He predicted the landing on the moon. He predicted the events of World War II, including the rise and fall of Hitler. He's predicted an enormous amount of things.
Some believe that the prophecies of Nostradamus point directly at today's perilous times. Could his cryptic quatrains have been describing the cataclysm that some say awaits us in 2012?
After a great misery from mankind, and even greater approaches, it will rain blood, milk, famine, iron, and pestilence. In the sky will be seen a fire, dragging a trail of sparks.
Apocalyptic visions are everywhere in the work of Nostradamus. The most frightening and familiar image, fire in the sky. Is Nostradamus pointing to some yet undiscovered threat from the skies? A comet or asteroid hurtling silently through space? Deadly solar flares thrown off from the sun? Modern science now searches for answers to these questions. What evidence might astronomers discover to support the voices of those who predict doomsday in 2012? Will the world end in 2012? Or will it slowly keep turning, as it has for millions of years? Some interpreters of the Mayan calendar say that the Mayans foresaw 2012 as the year of the apocalypse. And they see corroboration in the prophecies of other ancient cultures, the Hopi and Hindu. But skeptics see few real connections. Now the debate intensifies as some seek answers from history's most renowned seer, Nostradamus. What is his prediction for 2012? The year never appears in any of his quatrains. But some believe one quatrain alludes to an astronomical event that could potentially occur.
In the sky will be seen a fire, dragging a trail of sparks.
Some researchers believe Nostradamus is describing an asteroid or comet. Over eons, Earth has been struck by a variety of celestial objects, some of which triggered extinction.
There is a theory that the dinosaurs 65 million years ago were wiped out by an asteroid. If that were to happen, we could be looking at an end-of-the-world scenario, definitely.
Something that big were to happen, humanity wouldn't survive.
Could an asteroid strike Earth in 2012? NASA estimates there are a total of 20,000 asteroids and comets in our solar system that are potential threats. But scientists know where only 6,000 of these objects are, and some fear one could be heading our way. Analysts at NASA have confirmed that a different threat from space may impact Earth. From our own sun.
It just so happens, perhaps coincidentally, that the solar activity, sunstorms, sunspots, and the explosions that emanate from them will climax in 2012. This is not a Mayan or a New Age prediction. This is by consensus of contemporary astronomers.
What we know from the past is that there's an 11-year solar cycle, and we'll be coming to the peak of that solar cycle in 2012. So the chances of solar activity being high, of disturbances coming from the sun, will be high for the whole year of 2012. It's a paradox, but we're more susceptible to problems from the sun now than we ever have been before. And that's because we rely on increasingly sophisticated technology, microcircuits, microchips, small things that can easily be disrupted by just a small amount of radiation.
If the solar climax of 2012 is more powerful than any previously recorded, what could be the worst-case scenario?
Without any warning, we suddenly have a communication blackout over the polar caps. We lose contact with our aircraft flying from the eastern United States to East Asia. The next thing that happens is a big cloud of solar plasma, that means charged ions and electrons, slams into the Earth, compresses the Earth's magnetic field, and sets off a storm inside the Earth's magnetic field.
Satellites crippled, communication cut off, all electricity out. Chaos ensues as our electronic world shuts down. Could this be our imminent future? Or will our weakening magnetic field protect us, as it always has in the past? Prophecies foretelling the world's end in 2012 have emerged not only from the cosmos, but also the inner mind. An American shaman of sorts would embark on a different type of cosmic journey in the 1970s. This hero of the counterculture searched for answers to the human condition. His name, Terence McKenna. He would combine complex mathematics, Chinese philosophy, and psychedelic drugs into a provocative new form of prophecy. His quest eventually led him to conclude that, just as the Mayans predicted over 1,000 years earlier, humanity's end was destined for 2012. In 1971, McKenna and his brother Dennis accelerated their spiritual experiment with a trip through the Colombian Amazon. The result was an end-of-days theory so novel, scholars took immediate notice.
We were, I guess, children of the 60s in a sense, and part of the counterculture. We were interested in alchemy, magic, psychedelics, and many subjects that you might think of as esoteric.
The McKenna brothers went to Colombia in search of ukuhe, a hallucinogenic potion that contains DMT, a psychedelic drug.
We found out that DMT occurred in many plants and that many of these plants were used in shamanism, particularly in South American shamanism. It actually opened the doorway to what seemed to be a profoundly different world, and a different world in the sense that it seemed as real as this world. We thought that we were really on a quest for some kind of holy grail.
Use of these recreational drugs would lead to Terence McKenna's groundbreaking life's work, time wave theory. This theory proposes that the ebb and flow of significant events in the universe is an inherent quality of time, and that across the millennia, these significant events increase exponentially until they climax in 2012. Skeptics consider it pseudo-scientific fantasy. Followers of the time wave theory believe it's genius.
The idea for the time wave grew out of this experiment, what you might call ideas downloaded from another dimension.
But not everyone agrees. What skeptics would consider a psychedelic drug trip for kicks, the McKenna brothers saw as an experiment probing untapped human potential.
A number of other things did manifest, which you might interpret as paranormal. For instance, we seem to have telepathy with each other. I could hear what Terence was saying in my head and vice versa. We seem to have access to a huge database of information from somewhere. I was traveling backward in time, he was traveling forward in time, and Terence did not sleep for 14 days after the experiment.
Terence McKenna believed that during the experiment, a divine voice instructed him to analyze numerical patterns of an ancient Chinese text called the I Ching. A text that uses complex symbols to organize seemingly random events, including those yet to happen. This system, still in use today, is believed by some to predict the future.
The I Ching is a Chinese divination system that uses broken and unbroken lines in hexagrams to form patterns. There are 64 sequences that you can get, 64 combinations. Now, Terence and Dennis, they saw a pattern emerge that correlated with events of novelty, which are just simply new events that happen to human beings, or that happen in the world or in the universe.
And he started making charts and almost like automatic writing, looking at the I Ching and running these cycles of 64 hexagrams in the I Ching, and 6 times 64 is 384. Well, it turns out 384 is a perfect 13-month lunar year.
Guided by the I Ching, Terence McKenna used complex math to plot so-called periods of novelty on a wave or timeline. He then looked for a significant date in history, which would mark the start of the final cycle of life on Earth. He chose August 8, 1945, the date of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima, Japan. To that date in 1945, he added 67.29 years. the length of one cycle of life, according to the I Ching. The result was an end date in December 2012, essentially the same end date identified by the Mayans. For McKenna, it was the missing key that unlocked the mystery of his time wave theory. But Terence McKenna would never learn whether his doomsday time wave theory would be realized. He died in April of 2000.
We really need Terence now. We need his eloquence, and we don't have it, and I'm an extremely poor substitute for it. But I feel that I have to at least bring Terence's work to the forefront because it is the most incredibly important work that I've ever seen.
For some, Terence McKenna's work suggests that the I Ching is yet another ancient prophecy corroborating doom for 2012. And some believe a different 21st century prophet, one hidden in the shadows, has issued the same dire warning. It is not rooted in ancient wisdom nor long-lost cultures, but microchips. Could history's ultimate source of information, the internet, hold the secret to what might happen in 2012? The Mayans, the Hopi, the Hindu, the I Ching, modern science. Adherents to the belief that the world will end in 2012 say these cultures are sending a message of warning to our generation. And they believe more proof of this is perhaps unfolding today. October 2008, New York City, financial capital of the world. The U.S. economy plummets into a free-falling state of chaos, sending shockwaves across all global markets. Major financial institutions close their doors. Food and fuel prices skyrocket. Unemployment in the U.S. rises to the greatest levels since World War II. A major disruption just 4 years before 2012. Could the recent financial collapse be simply the inherent nature of capitalism at work? Or is the world moving closer to an end-of-days cataclysm?
The global economy is collapsing, people are panicking, we are living in a very fear-based time right now.
I think what we have here with 2012 is what I call chicken littleism. The sky is falling, the sky is falling. What date? Oh, it must be now.
Some believe the debate over 2012 can be settled by a newer oracle now among us. A revolutionary triumph of the computer age. In 1997, a mysterious former computer consultant, today known only as Cliff, created a program called WebBot. Those familiar with WebBot and its inventor say Cliff designed the program to predict future stock market trends.
The WebBot program is really interesting because it corresponds with a Hopi prophecy that towards the end time, the world would become like a spider web and everybody would be able to communicate, interconnected by this web. Well, we've got the World Wide Web now.
The Internet's powerful ability to disseminate and build upon vast amounts of global information has led some to a provocative belief that the Internet is a repository of our own psychic visions of the future. WebBot is our tool to decoding it.
The WebBot project is looking to tap into the collective unconscious of humanity by focusing on specific search words and keywords to kind of look for tipping points, trends, memes, paradigms that are being discussed on the internet.
WebBot is a software application that automatically combs internet data in search of keywords denoting trends. It not only finds the keywords, but those surrounding them, and analyzes the results using linguistic tools. The data ends up at a central collection point, its location and data collectors still unknown, where they can be read and interpreted. Results emerge as mysterious clipped fragments, reminiscent of the poem-like quatrains of history's most famous seer, Nostradamus. In the 1990s, WebBot completed countless word searches and compiled trend reports. And in 2001, an unexpected pattern seemed to emerge.
I first heard about it in June of 2001 when one of my friends sent me an email saying some crackpot is saying that there's going to be something happening in late summer, high-rise buildings are going to be destroyed, airplanes, terrorism, many die. And I went, yeah, right, whatever, you know, and I ignored it. And 911 happened. A few years later, I got another message from my friend saying that crazy guy is saying something again. I said, what's he saying now? And he's saying, southern city, flood, many die. And I said, okay, if anything happened, I would now start paying attention to this guy. Well, Katrina happened 3 weeks later in New Orleans.
Hurricane Katrina barreled into the southern coast of the United States on August 29, 2005, causing catastrophic floods and levee failures throughout 80% of the city of New Orleans. Nearly 2,000 people lost their lives. Property damage surpassed $100 billion. Those using WebBot as a predictive device began forecasting more trends, many of which supposedly point to a dark and dangerous future. The 2008 stock market crash, bank failures, mass unemployment, collapse of the housing market. According to some, WebBot saw it all coming, based on information in cyberspace. As for 2012, some believe WebBot purportedly foresees countless casualties resulting from an unusual combination of disease, economic collapse, and even an unidentified threat from space, echoing the Hopi Indians and the 500-year-old prophecies of Nostradamus. But skeptics say cyberspace has no mysterious ability to predict the future. If we do accept the forecasts of WebBot followers and believers in the 2012 apocalypse as accurate, then a major question looms. What will happen on December 22nd, 2012, the day after? Is it possible for anyone to survive, let alone rebuild? A doomsday bunker on the edge of the Earth containing one of our most precious commodities could be our best hope. December 21st, 2012, a date predicted thousands of years ago across diverse cultures to be the end of everything. When the world will lie smoldering in ruins, decimated by a final cataclysm. Some believe solar storms will rain destruction upon our planet. Power will shut down, and even a new ice age may emerge. If we accept the premise that life as we know it will draw to a close, what might await in 2013?
It will be very, very hard to survive this, because all the volcanoes that will go off, they will give cloud of dust around the Earth, and that will stay there for at least 30 to 40 years. So there will be almost no sun. The Stone Age was better because you had sun, and after this cataclysm you won't have food, you won't have sun, you won't have electricity, you will have nothing.
This is the aftermath of global disaster. A tiny fraction of the population has survived and must now claw for what little resources remain.
The only people that are going to survive the cataclysm are those who are taking precautions now.
For survivors to endure, they will have had to stockpile food, weapons, and supplies necessary to live on and rebuild.
I think that the only safety that people are going to find is in community and in networks of trust. Trust is going to become like a new form of value principle. to replace a vanished obsession with money.
Researchers suggest the safest possible locations to resettle after the devastation will be far away from cities, coastlines, nuclear plants, and at least 6,000 feet in elevation.
We have found several places that we think that are okay. Malawi is okay, Morocco is okay, Ethiopia if you stay far away from the volcanoes, and also Madagascar.
But why so high above sea level?
The pollution that is going to be created by the tidal waves, it's going to be taking out industry, densely populated areas. We're going to have oil wells, tank farms, tankers, chemical plants that are going to be inundated. And the farmlands are going to be inundated with salty, toxic water. This is why higher elevations are going to be needed to habitate and colonize and be able to plant crops out of the flood zone.
Those who believe that hoarding supplies and choosing the right location are not enough to survive now look to a bold new model. 300 miles north of the Norwegian mainland, 427 feet inside a frozen mountain, lies a bunker unlike any other.
One of the more positive things that's being done in case there is a series of global catastrophes in 2012 is the Doomsday Seed Vault, which is an impenetrable vault that is storing seeds for us. It is supposedly immune to everything from supervolcanic eruption to nuclear explosion. And in this vault, geneticists, researchers, scientists are bringing the best quality seeds that they can, in the hopes that if something ever did happen, we would be able to use these seeds to repopulate these plants, to have a new agricultural society.
The Svalbard Global Seed Vault began operation in 2008. It's the world's $9 million insurance policy against catastrophic loss of plants on Earth. It can hold up to 4.5 million distinct samples of seeds, or about 2 billion in total. The seeds are gathered from all over the world, encompassing almost every variety of the globe's most important food crops.
The seed vault is basically a little Noah's Ark.
The refrigerated vaults preserve the seeds at 0 degrees Fahrenheit. If the refrigeration units fail, the Arctic permafrost surrounding the vault will still keep the seeds frozen at 25 degrees Fahrenheit. To sabotage or steal from this facility, one would have to brave bone-chilling temperatures, polar bears, and state-of-the-art security. Assuming survivors of an apocalypse could reach the seed vault, the seeds stored here would ensure that they could regrow the crops needed for survival. But not everyone is convinced the facility is a fail-safe against 2012.
The tidal wave from 2 kilometers high comes in, everything will be destroyed. Nothing will be left. And it won't help us to restart civilization. So, according to me, it's a huge waste of money.
But as 2012 approaches, many believe the focus on this date as a year of apocalypse is a result of misinterpretation and hysteria. Others contend that a chorus of ancient prophecies have manifested in today's events and are clear signs of impending calamity. For them, it is no coincidence that one message of doom is seemingly shared by cultures separated by so many miles and centuries.
They're feeling it, they're seeing it in the news. Something is coming.
The year 2012 appears to me as a completely arbitrary date. No different from 2011 or 2013. I'm sure there will be some exciting things happen in that year, but then that's true for all other years as well.
What I'm most worried about for 2012 is the domino effect. It's global systemic collapse.
The clock keeps ticking as we await the arrival of December 21st, 2012. There is every reason to believe that day will dawn, as so many millions have before it. But what the world will look like on the morning after, December 22nd, is anyone's guess.